Well, hello again, sports fans. I've been using the Ranger to search for Jeff's 50 size extra, which flew away on us to the north a couple of weeks ago. I've had to suspend the search though because I've been using the Cyclops Tornado waypoints to manage the search, and unfortunately it seems unable to get a satellite fix at the moment. I've been able to configure another GPS module to the same settings as the original, and while the OSD is now showing the GPS data and allowing me to use the autonomous functions, it just doesn't seem to be flying as well as it was with the original. I've also decided to test the aerial visibility of my Baud 300, which is roughly the same size and similar colour to Jeff's missing extra. So I've set it in the long grass to one side of the strip, and I'll be flying over it as I do the various GPS tests on the Ranger. I'll be using the same down pointing mini Mobius camera that I'm using for the real search. So the launch goes fairly well, and I just set about getting a decent amount of altitude before I start messing around with the flight controller modes. There's a little bit of wind coming from the north, but it's a nice bright sunny afternoon. It's a bit late in the afternoon and the shadows are a little bit long, but I'm not expecting too many troubles from them. So at this point I'm at an altitude of about 50 metres, flying down the strip and just about to fly over the top of my Baud, which I've planted in the long grass to the left of the strip. And at this altitude it's no real difficulty in spotting it on the raw footage. At the moment I'm in manual mode, and the OSD is showing me that I have a solid satellite fix. The GPS data is being displayed correctly, as is the distance data down the bottom. I'm just switching it into loiter mode, which is set to do right-handed circles, but it seems to be a bit reluctant to actually do them at the moment. So I'm up at 100 metres and just about to come over the top of the test plane again, and at this altitude you've got to be a little bit lucky to spot it. It is there on the raw footage, but it would be easy to miss it. So I'm still in loiter mode, but still not happy with the way it's responding. It certainly seems to be hanging around a geographic point, but there's no rhyme nor reason to which way it's turning, and it's just not behaving the way it should. So I give up on loiter and put it into pilot assist mode to fly it up to a higher altitude and do another flyby over my test plane. So I take it up to around about 150, 160 metres, and looking at the video you'd be pretty lucky to spot it on the raw footage without using stop frame and zoom features. So yes, I think I'm above the effective height for searching for Jeff's plane here. So I decided that it's time to test the waypoint functions, which is the main reason I'm here today. I've set 4 waypoints up on the Tornado, with the first being a bit northwest, about 2 kilometres, and then turning south, then east, then back over home. They've been set at gradually increasing altitudes, with the first starting at 100 metres for point A. So I've switched it into autopilot mode, and as you can see there are 1800 metres to go. It's turning around to head for it, which is very satisfying, and it seems to be maintaining the 100 metres altitude fairly easily. What is of some concern to me is the way it's rocking backwards and forwards and changing direction. It seems to be heading in the general direction of where the waypoint should be, but it's certainly not flying there directly. which is my recollection of what it was doing with the original GPS module. Now that I've speeded it up, you can see this rocking action more clearly. So as we get within a couple of 100 metres of point A, it should automatically switch over to point B, and we should see a turn to the south, which is to the left of the screen. And sure enough, it switches over to point B, which is 1500 metres away, and I think it's at about 150 metres of altitude. So she turns nicely and settles on a roughly southerly heading, but as you can see from the speeded up section, the rocking backwards and forwards is really quite violent. Even though it does get there in the end, it's certainly something of concern and would make searching a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. So for some reason with this waypoint it gets a lot closer before it makes the turn, but it does make it. And as you can see, the rocking motion continues. The high speed makes it look more violent than it is, but it's still of some concern. And again, we get quite close to point C before it switches to point D around to the north again. And as you can see, the rocking motion is continuous. The altitude for this final waypoint is set at 300 metres, and I'm thinking maybe it's the climbing to altitude that's causing the rocking, but I think I might be grasping at straws. There's a little bit of video breakup as I fly over the antenna of the base station, and down below there in that red circle is where I've put my little test plane, but good luck seeing it because I certainly can't. So I decided to let it complete the waypoint pattern. I don't use waypoints much, so I wasn't really sure what happened when it gets to the final waypoint, whether it starts again on the first one or whether it comes back to home. So I was interested to see what would happen. And it decides to go back to the first waypoint again. I believe switching from autopilot mode into pilot assist mode and back again will actually increment the waypoint without flying there, and that seems to work properly as well, so that's a positive thing. So the last thing I need to test is the return to home mode, so I put it in pilot assist mode and fly out a couple of kilometres and flick the return to home switch and hope she comes home. So she turns quite quickly, no problem at all, seems to line up on home, but as you can see here again that rocking motion is there, and that definitely hasn't been there before, so I'm a little bit disappointed with how it's behaving. The loss of altitude you can see is me actually applying a bit of down elevator on the way, so I don't have to fly it down from so high when it arrives. So it does arrive at the home point and it goes into its circular pattern, but it's all over the place. It's sometimes right-handed, sometimes left-handed. It just really is impossible to predict and really quite erratic. So it doesn't look like there's anything more I can do in the air. It seems to be flying perfectly fine in manual mode or in pilot assisted mode. It's just the GPS controlled modes that are behaving erratically. So I decide I'll just bring it down for a landing and have a play with the GPS at home.